That's a good thing to do to recording.
Give it one more minute. I think
Yeah,
we'll go ahead and get started.
no problem, bud.
If you haven't seen it, there's a text link and text response that should bring up the screen sharing. I figured I'll start out with some Blender and then go through some scenarios and then go from there, I guess.
Hey, Relic, this is my first time using this.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the text link for the screen sharing?
Go down to text response in the Discord, and then there's a link where I just barely posted it, unless somebody spammed it away.
Yeah, voice chat response, the
Voice
one
chat
right above
Voice
general
response.
chat.
voice.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
voice chat. Yeah, it's named different elsewhere.
Cool, got it. Thanks.
You just click that and it takes you right to the screen share.
Nice, got it. Thanks.
No problem, no problem.
By the way, for those of you looking at it, how does that look? Is it visible?
It's the box, but like for some
I've
reason, it's like when you move the mouse around, the right side of the screen is
That's
like
the magnifier.
okay.
I deliberately put on the magnifier because right now I'm streaming like 720 and my screen is much larger than that. So that way, if something comes up that you want to see the picture, then that kind of gives you a clearer view of it.
I see.
Should come in. Because I remember last time I was sharing with you, Natty, that you had a hard time seeing what I was doing, so I figured I'd get things a little larger.
No, I think it works.
All right, 5 minutes have passed since the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. So I've started Blender. We're just in the basic, first scene you see. This is known as the layout scene. I'll just kind of go through the various parts of the windows. So up here, here's the main menu. Pretty much any Windows program has that. Over here are presets. These allow you to switch between various presets, and it's fully customizable, but they have some convenient ones that are already been created. Next down is the let's see here. Let me think. This right here is kind of the header of the viewport, and the viewport happens to be this entire area right here that goes from here to here to here. And the thing about the Blender interface is it's highly customizable. You can design it however you want. That you can put, this thing over here on this side or down here. Like this animation bar, I can change this to whatever I want. But anyway, so this is the viewport. So from here to here, down to this corner, down to this corner is the viewport. Um, and this is kind of the viewport header. And the next one down is the viewport menu. And so you have various menus for the viewport. This is your mode. Most often you have object and edit mode. Edit mode allows you to manually edit the object, and then object mode just means you're handling the object as a whole. The rest of these are advanced stuff, so I'm not going to go into those. In fact, I haven't even gotten that far myself. Um, Further over here, we have visibility right here. Um, I actually haven't messed with this much myself. Object types. So I guess you can hide stuff like the meshes. Each object you have like this is a mesh, but you can also have things like curves and whatnot. But the meshes is what we work with the most, and this just allows you to quick hide stuff that you don't want to be looking. Um, this right here is the viewport gizmos. This is actually really useful. Oh wait, well, Oh yeah. So there's various things like this is you see this thing right here that just popped up when I had that. So there's some things that can that I can bring in and hide, like the active tools, like this thing right, this little try thing. So I can hide stuff. This thing right here, act, and there's other stuff, I guess. The thing that I was really talking about this just was the viewport overlay. This is allows you that say you're in the middle of editing an object, you've made a change, and you want to see that change, but you don't want all these goofy things in your way. You don't want to see this grid, you don't want to see this thing, you don't want to see the box around there, you don't want to see the vertices or stuff like that. Clicking that right there will hide all of that. Well, except for that, which I guess is this here. And that makes it so you can kind of see it without all the stuff in your way. Now this also does other stuff, like you can manually hide individual things and even reveal things, like you can show the wireframe. Face orientation, this is, I think, the most important addition to Blender 2.8, and this allows you to see what the face orientation is. If it's blue, that means that everything's facing outward. But if you see red, if I get inside of here, then that means it's facing the wrong way and the face needs to be inverted. So that's in Wave and many modeling software, you have things that are called normals. And the normal, how that kind of works, to my understanding, is that when you have a light, so here's a light right here, and this light is casting light on there, and it hits that face right there. What it does is it calculates, hey, this this face needs this much light, and if the object is rotated a certain way, and it calculates the rotation that it strikes at. So if the object is rotated a certain way, and then it calculates, okay, that needs that much light. And so normals are important. So if it's red, then that means when the light hits the red face, it says, oh hey, this isn't supposed to receive any light, so it doesn't add any light to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Wave that translates as like you can't put a light anywhere near it, and it just doesn't change color.
Yeah, and it can be taken advantage of because let me just quickly go here into edit mode and then go mesh, uh, normals, and then flip. And then let me get out of mesh right here. By the way, to quickly go between object mode and mesh mode, um, is you hit tab on the keyboard. Well, this is 2.7. I'm on the 2.7 layout, so I can't exactly describe keys because there's one for 2.7, 2.8. I'm used to 2.7 layout, so I'm on that. It might be the same on 2.8. I just don't know. I just don't know if it's different. Okay, so these normals are inverted. Now the cool thing about that is that in Wave, if that means the object will be dark if you have a point light on the outside. But if you hide a point light on the inside of that, then it will light up the faces as if they're being lit from within. So it creates a kind of a glowy thing. So it's a neat effect. Totsy's used it before and that whatnot. But so that's kind of why normals are used, because if it's facing the wrong way, then it won't get lit up properly. Yeah, exactly. And so that's this thing right here. X-ray. Oh, that's interesting. I've never used that before, but I guess that allows you to see the faces behind the front faces. These right here are important. These allow you to switch between the different view modes. Like this one's wireframe mode. This one is viewport shading. So this is just viewport shaded. This has no textures applied to it whatsoever. And if I had a texture applied to it, it wouldn't show up in this one right here. This is just flat shading. All it shows is your material. This right here is, I think, just texture mode, material preview. So this just gives you Whoa. Somebody needs to mute their microphone. Thank you. Oh. Anyway, and then next,
JT Portland?
yeah, it's echoing in. There we go. Thank you. So this right here is that, and this one right here is preview right here, and this will actually give a rough idea of what the lighting will look like. But in Wave, when you export to OBJ, lighting is irrelevant. So one of the first things I usually do when I'm working with objects in Blender is I'll just basically light everything up, and then this right here allows you to change it so that it has no lighting. And the world is an important thing because over here you have, I'll come back to this right here. You have the world right here, and you notice how they have that gray back there, and you can kind of change that up and down. That's important, especially if you're doing rendering type stuff. But you can work around that by turning the world off, and then you can have there's a bunch of presets.
Rellik.
You have a bunch of lighting presets that you can kind of work with, but that's okay. Over here, this is your object list of all the objects in your scene, and you'll have the mesh. So this little triangular thing right here means it's a mesh. You have a light. You can have multiple lights. There's a camera that you can switch to, and then a collection, whatever that is. And you can have multiple collections and whatnot, but usually things are pretty simple. What else we got here? You can filter stuff like that. So down here you can kind of select, I want to see stuff if you've got a really complex thing. And then you can search, of course, filter by that. Down here, I'm not exactly sure what to call this, but these are kind of meta stuff for the world. Most of your time will probably be spent in the material editor or the so let's see, let's go down these one by one. Active tool workspace, I haven't used that yet. This is the rendering option right here. If you ever do rendering, this is a thing that you'll come to often. Dimensions, that's the render output, I guess. View layer, haven't had a use for that yet. Scene, I haven't really used that yet. World, I've already visited with World. This allows you to control the overall lighting of the object in sorts by increasing the world lighting. Although that can be also accomplished with individual lights. Object properties. I guess this allows you to manually move stuff around. Although this is also accessible with this little tiny arrow right here, which I use quite frequently. And this allows other connections. You can connect stuff around. I don't use that very often. Modifiers, this gets really fancy. These are things that you can do to modify an object. Particle, we're not doing, particles is really advanced. Physics is really advanced. Object constraint, properties, object data properties. And then finally you have material. And then material, like I said, this is going to be the one you spend the most time with. And then finally down here, this is animation. This can be gotten rid of. It really serves no use. At least for what we're doing. I mean, you can, if you want to get really fancy, then you can animate stuff. And it is technically possible to upload animated stuff to Google Poly, but it does not work in Wave currently. But what you can do is you can change it to something else. So, and if we want to get rid of it completely, I did not mean to. Crud, how do we get rid of this? I cannot for the life of me remember how to get rid of these. Dots, do you remember how to do that?
I'm sorry, get rid of what I was.
If you create a window, how do you get rid of it?
Well, I know how to do it in 2.7.
It should be the same, I think.
Yeah, you grab it and pull it back over the old one. You have to grab it from Oops. Move, kitty. I think you have to grab the menu bar and pull it over, not the size one. Yeah, there you go. You almost had it. I guess it's different in this one.
Or is it? Anyway, yeah, there's a way to get rid of it. I, for the life of me, cannot remember how to do it. But if you want to create a new window, like I just really did, then you grab from the bottom edge right here and you pull up. And same with all the other edges. So like if I want to create a new window right here, you see this little thing right here, I can create another viewport right here. So now I have two viewports and I can have them aligned differently. Now on the keyboard, as far as the viewport is concerned, the most useful thing on the keyboard are the number pad keys. And if you're on a number pad, a 10 key less keyboard, then you're kind of in trouble. But on the number pad, each number and the period does something different. So 0 will align you with the camera right here. So right here's the camera. That's the viewport of that camera right there, which can be configured. Period will center in on the current object that you have highlighted. So if I zoom out a lot, or if I shift around, if I shift the scene around, so if I'm way off like this and then I hit period, it'll zoom in right on that object, so I can then work on that object if I'm off alignment. 1 will line it to, I think, one of the axis. It'll align it, I think, to the y-axis. And then 2 will align it to the x-axis. 7 will align it to the z-axis. And then 9 will align it to the other side of the z-axis. So you can look at it from the top or the bottom. And then 5 is an interesting one. It switches between what's the term?
Orthographic.
Orthographic, yeah. Orthographic. And the important thing to know about orthographic is that when you're in orthographic mode, you cannot zoom in and get inside of an object. You're stuck on basically looking at it from the outside. But if you turn orthographic off, then that means you can zoom in and get inside the object. That's one kind of important consideration. And then finally, the arrow keys on the 2, 4, 6, and 8. When you're in a mode, it'll rotate it around. So there's 2 rotating it that direction, and then there's 6 rotating that direction, and then 4 will rotate the other way, and then 8 will rotate it that way. So you can kind of fine tune your rotations. Plus and minus zoom in on the keypad, but the scroll wheel does the same, so that's kind of unnecessary anyway. And then finally, holding shift will, I think, get the opposite, or is it control? I think it's control. Okay. It's holding control and pressing one of the rotation keys on the keypad will show the other side of that. Will do the opposite rotation. So it'll give you the other side of the object. Very important for when.
Yeah, 9 also does that.
Yeah, 9. Well, oh yeah. So okay. So 9 inverts whatever you're currently looking. So 1, 3, and 7 does X or Y, X, and Z, and then 9 will invert whatever you're currently looking. But holding control and doing 1, 7, and 3 will do the same thing as pressing 9. Does that make sense? Anybody, any questions so far? Yes, not. Over here, we have this little mini toolbar right here. This allows for a quick control of various methods. You have the selection box, which allows you to grab and select an object. Like if I want to grab the camera right there, there's the camera right there. If I want to grab that light, there's the light right there. And you can do different selection modes. So you got select box, select circle, select lasso, kind of like in Photoshop. 3D cursor, that has its importance, and positioning it can be kind of interesting. I don't use it a whole lot, but it does come into play when you want to do stuff like moving an object or having having it snap or something like that. You have the move, so that means it allows you to. Wrong thing. You have the move grabber, so you can move an object without having to, with a little bit more precision, without having to use the number pad. And then that will do that. Rotation, obviously you can rotate an object without having to get in there. Quick note on rotation, holding the control key will tighten up the increments of rotation. Shift key will make the rotation much finer, and alt key doesn't do anything. Scale, that allows you to make the object bigger in various directions, so you can scale it up, scale it right, scale it left, and then do various scaling operations. Transform, I guess, just allows you to do everything all at once, just depending on what you're trying to do. So that's kind of an all-in-one control, which can be problematic, but sometimes you want to do the individual. Annotate, I guess if you want to mark stuff up, that doesn't translate. That doesn't get saved in the OBJ file. And measure, if you're measuring, it's like a measure on CAD. All right, so I think we've gone far enough on the kind of the interface introduction. Anybody have any questions about the interface so far? Okay. So we've got this object. So I'm just going to create a new file now. New general, don't save. So I'm going to go through kind of a couple of scenarios. Let's start with, say I want to make a poster. Everybody wants to make a wave poster. The quick and dirty way to do that is to delete the cube, add, and this is where you can add various objects, mesh, plane. So you have your plane now. By the way, when I rotate like this, I'm using the mouse, the middle mouse button. So we have the plane now. We want to add a texture to it. So we want to make sure we're in material mode. But first, the way you do that is that you have the shading preset right here. This is the quickest way to add a texture. We switch to shading right here. We make sure we're in at least the material preview, although I'm pretty certain it usually is. So first thing we want to do is we want to create a new material for this, because right now it has no material assigned whatsoever. So we click on new right here. We have a new material. And this right here is what is called the shader editor. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. But when it comes to Wave, there's only a few things that Wave will actually pay attention to at this time. This may change in the future when they start supporting things like normal maps and whatnot. They support base color with the diffuse texture, metallic, but that's metallic is an all or nothing proposition. So you turn on metallic somewhat, it'll just turn it on or it'll turn it off. Roughness is how shiny the object is. So if you have roughness all the way down, it's like glass, like a mirror almost. And in Wave, when you have roughness all the way down, you're basically seeing a reflection of the map that's around your head in wave. And so, all the objects, those are mapped into a giant sphere over around your head in wave. And interestingly enough, if you're on desktop, it doesn't show that because every time that reflective sphere is created, it's created when you teleport or snap rotate. But desktop, you can't teleport. You can teleport, but when you do but it doesn't create a map on desktop. So you just see some generic map. Specular doesn't do anything. Specular tint doesn't do anything. Antistropic, nope, 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 nope. Transmission. And then finally, alpha. Alpha does work. I think it's a little bit glitchy at times. The one thing about alpha is that when you're in 2.8, at 2.8, the cycles renderer, the 2.8 has two different renders. You have cycles and then you have EV. EV is the default because it's quick, but it does not render alpha blending. So you have to switch to cycles, which is much slower. But alpha is how transparent the object is. That does work. However, what does not work is using a transparent ping file as a texture, and hopefully that'll get fixed eventually. But you'll notice that if you're trying to do like a tree leaf and you want to have it in a flat plane, and you have the leaf that's kind of cut out right here, but it's on the plane, you'll see the square still if you're trying to use transparency. So whatever you're doing, you have to have it be a solid image file, 24-bit ping file. 32-bit ping files cause issues, especially with tunnels. But the alpha does work, although I haven't checked it lately, but it's a little bit glitchy. Sometimes you'll see the inside of the cube, and I think that's because of that might be it looks weird, but I'll just leave it at that. So alpha does work, but just expect some weirdness with it.
And don't set it to 0.
Yeah, don't set it to 0. So when you set it to
think
this,
0 works, but if you to make something completely transparent in wave, it has to be at like 0.0001.
Yeah, like that.
Weird.
So alpha 0.001 if you want it to be mostly transparent. But anyway, back to making a basic poster. So we've got this right here, and we want to apply a texture to it. So what you do is you go add texture and then image texture right here. So you create an image texture, and then this color right here can be linked with any of these dots right here. But we want to link that with the base color, and this is what is known as the diffuse. By the way, a very important note, make sure that this base color is at least either left at white or whatever color you want the color will be, because once you connect this, say this is blue right here, say I leave this at blue, and then I connect this, and then you apply a texture, you won't know that that's still blue. It doesn't show being blue right here, which kind of bugs me, but it may or may not be exported as blue because you'll have the texture, but then the texture will be all shaded blue in wave. So let's go find a texture. So somewhere in my projects folder, let's see here. Oh, I don't really have anything here that we'll just use it. Simple. No, I don't. We'll just do that. Well, that's fine. It's a text. Oh, you notice that this has got the you'll see that right there. That's the gloss. That's the roughness turned all the way down. So that makes it really shiny. So you're seeing the reflection of this right here. And I can change that to whatever I want. That allows you to kind of get an idea of what's going on before. I think it's even technically possible to import your own reflection maps, but we'll just do that guy. But if I turn the reflection, if I turn the the roughness all the way up, then that reflection goes away. And then anywhere in between gives you that right there. So I got this texture on here now. It's all working. Now we need to resize it, or if you have an off-angle texture, I got to see if I can find an off-angle texture somewhere around here. This might be it. There we go. Okay, so this is the wave logo right here. Center in on that. So I've applied the texture. But that wave logo is not a square image. Now, if you want to, you can just guesstimate it by grabbing the scale and then just stretch it out manually. That works. So you can kind of go like that, and that'll scale it. Or you can go over here, and then you can do math. And I have an old PDF file that does the math. But basically, you divide the resolution of the image by the widest by the shortest, and you take that decimal and then you just apply that to either the x or the y depending on what it is, and then that way that'll give you the exact dimension. But sometimes you can just get it close enough. So the texture's in there. We're basically there to ship. So now you can finally go to File, Export, OBJ. Although before I do that, let's make sure that it's in a good rotation, because I might have accidentally it. But yeah, okay, rotation's fine, location fine. Okay, so I've got that. So you just go File, Export, OBJ, and then so we go back to Projects, and then we go to Poster. I call this Poster OBJ for OBJ. Okay. Now let's bring up the web browser. So we go to Poly, upload, select a file from your device. We want to go to Multi-Units, Projects. I got too many objects in here. Go find CLS. Sure. There it is. So you have two files when you export to OBJ. You have OBJ and then MTL. OBJ is the actual layout of the object, and then MTL is the defined materials. And so what you want to do is use the control key, select poster or the MTL, the OBJ, and then go find the texture that you had selected, wherever that is. Where's the wave? Did I name that? No, but where's the texture? The wave texture.
Wave logo. No.
Wave logo. Oh, there it is. Wave logo. Okay.
And at least in 2.7, when you export
Okay,
an OBJ, you can set the export to copy whatever texture to the directory that you export it to.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So there's a handy method for that.
When you're doing that, there's a pop out right here. So we want to, when you go to export, these are this little side thing right here is really important. Is it there?
Hold on, I can't scroll up or a little bit. Path mode auto. Okay, yeah, but you want to go to path mode copy down below in the transform thing. Up a little bit. Up. There we go. Copy.
Got it. But if I'll take a moment and import something in a moment too. But these two other things are really useful for importing objects. Okay, so I know what the object name is. So let's go back to the web. So it's up here at the top. It was 3.1. Here it is right here. Geez, I went right past it. So you select all three of those objects. Wait, what? Oh, try again. I must have accidentally deselected it. So we want the Wave logo, and then we want poster. So you have
Any textures, yep.
poster, poster MCL, and the texture. So you want to make sure all three of those are there. And if there's more files that are related, then you want to include every one of them.
And then Poly does accept zips too, if you want to upload it like that.
And if you have an issue where like the textures are in a subfolder, then you definitely want to create a zip file that has the same structure in it. So Wave logo. So you'll notice that I completely forgot that I set that blue diffuse color. So if I go back to here and I disconnect the texture, you'll notice that that plane is still blue. So it's very important that when you finally apply the texture, that you set that all the way to that you set that at least so that the. By the way, this can be used for very useful things. For example, whenever I want to use like directional lighting or point lighting in a scene, and I did this with the church, what I do is I force the diffuse to be a much lower value. So like I'll say 0.4, 0.4, and then 0.4. So that makes it and then 0.4. That makes it a much darker. I could go much lower, but if it's a much darker shade of white, then that allows you to have more stuff brighter in the scene, but you can use directional light, and it won't completely wash out the object on its own. So I use that. Not only did I use that on the church, I used that on I think Diamond Dog's pyramid, and I think there's another one I did it on too. But yeah, that diffuse does come in handy, but you just have to be aware of what happens. So poster, and then wave poster. By the way, I'm probably going to delete this immediately after uploading it because my understanding is that the Wave does have restrictions on using Wave logo stuff on creating stuff. So I, yeah, just okay, advertising. I get it. So if you make, okay, I get it.
Yeah, but uploading stuff to Poly for Wave purposes is fine.
Okay, yeah, I guess I don't understand that. Okay, category. I don't think you have to select a category, especially if it's just a random object like a poster. Although you could probably say objects, maybe. I don't know. Now, the two most important things when I put in a poly is you want visibility to be public, and then remixes to be allow remixing. Both of those have to be set when you upload to poly. If one of them isn't set, then you won't see it in Wave at all. You can change this after the fact. There's other stuff you can do in here, but it's really unimportant, especially when you bring into Wave, because none of this stuff right here does anything in Wave, especially this right. It may be tempting to, change the roughness gloss or fix that that color right there. I could try fixing that, but what happens is that Google will um, will make those alterations and create a new file. But what Wave does is it will download the original file. So Wave does not look for the new file at all. So yeah, you can change stuff here, but it won't affect it. Lighting doesn't really matter. Everything else here is just for making it look good. But ultimately, what you first upload is what will be put in Wave. So yeah, publish. So that's one file down. Okay, there it is. Nice shiny poster. And now you can bring that into Wave and put that wherever you want. And usually, most people know this by now, that you could supposedly jump into Wave right now and try to pull that in, but it literally takes about 5 minutes for it to actually show up. So you'd probably be better off just going off and doing something for another 5 minutes before going to Wave and looking at it. Anyway, back to Blender. So we've made that. Now let's kind of go into something a little bit different. Let's start a new file. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. I'm going to do a UV editing thing. So I'm going to add mesh. Let's do a cylinder. Now, when you add the cylinder, there are a few options down here. Whenever you add an object down here, you have this little thing that pops up. And you can say, generate UVs. So it will do everything already. And it will have kind of it will have an automatic UV. And then you can say I want this object to be this complex or this, that, and radius. You can make it so wide or depth. So you can do a bunch of stuff even before you want to edit it. Okay, so we've got what we wanted. So we're good with that. Now let's switch to UV editing. Now there's a number of ways to edit the UV. Now I've already generated the UV, and you notice it's already created a really nice UV. How UVs work is that each face on this object aligns with matches of a face that's on the UV map right here. So whatever you put on the texture in here will end up on the object right there. So this circle is probably the bottom. This circle is probably the top, and then you have the sides right here all the way around. Conveniently enough, it's already been done already. But if I want to do the UV in a different way, there's many different options that you can use to do UV. There are these ones right here. Like you have unwrap. Unwrap is kind of a complicated process. I'll probably do that last. You have Smart UV Project, Light Map Project, Follow Active Quads, Cube Map Projection, Cylinder, Sphere, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Cube is probably the most quick and dirty way of putting a texture on an object. But you'll notice that we just really did that. It just kind of slapped it in. It kind of overlaid everything, and it looks kind of bad. Now, let's go ahead and add a texture and see what it looks like. So we go into shading. We create a new file. We create a new material. Select. Where's add? Add texture, image texture. And I think there's a quicker way to do that, but I kind of go through menus. So we have a new texture. Let's go and no, not new texture. I want open a file. Let's see. Back to projects. Watery. I don't know what watery. Nope, that's good. I know what that one is though. Textures. Okay, I've got some good flat textures in here. So let's say metal plate diffuse. There. That's the texture. That actually didn't turn out that bad. So cube, I think for quick and dirty stuff is probably the best one to go for. But let's say we want to make a soda can. So let me bring up paint, or whatever software. So we'll just bring it paint. Okay. So file, new. I'm going to make it a 1024 by 1024 image. Okay. So this is going to be a really lazy texture. I'm going to take, let's do a square. So let's go make gradient. gradient. That'll do, I guess. And then I want to make a circle, a couple of circles. Left. Do that, and then maybe make a new red. Oh, do that, and then let's make another one. And then we'll that. Oh, this is really going to be really crappy, but it's kind of intentional. I'm going to put some text right here. So say we want big font. Oops. There. All right. File, save as, projects. We'll just call this soup. Save. 24-bit. All right. There. So that's a very quick and dirty texture right there. So let's change to that texture. Soup. That project. Soup. So you'll notice that it looks kind of crappy right now. So here's what we're going to do. We go back to UV editing. And then we're in edit mode right now. We switch to vertices. I select these vertices right here. These lines anyway. We go all the way around. I think I just select the face now that I think about it. Now what I do is I go to Edge, Mark, Seam. So what that does is when you go to UV Unwrap, that seam will say, oh, hey, that's a seam. We need to keep that separated from the rest. Now I'm going to take this right here, this one edge right here, Edge, Mark Seam. And then over here, I go over here. I'm just going to select the face because it's effectively the same thing. So I've selected that face right there, Edge, Mark Seam. So now we are effectively marking it. So you have the top, the bottom, and then the side right here. And that means that I can now unwrap it. You know, like how you peel an orange. Try to visualize peeling an orange. That's literally what we're doing. Or like this is the label of the soup can. You're peeling the label off the soup can and you're popping the top and the bottom off. So unwrap. Oh, one thing I need to do before I do all that, I need to select everything. So I go select everything. Everything's been selected now. That's one thing I forgot to do. So I go UV, unwrap. Oh, hey, look at that. Everything's now unwrapped. So over here, now that I have that, now I got to arrange everything the way I want it. So there's a few ways to do this. I can do this in face mode. In fact, I want it over here. You have UV selection mode. So you have select vertex, select line, edge, select face, and then select island. I think island is what I'm after. So yeah, so so it's created 3 islands right here. So let's deal with this one. So on the keyboard, I use G for grab. So I'm just going to grab this, move this out of the way, grab this, move this out of the way, then grab this. And then R on the keyboard is rotate. So there's rotate. I'm going to hold the control key so it's level. Grab that. and then position it roughly where I want it. It doesn't need to be too fancy. Well, let me change this preview right here. So that's not too bad. Now let's grab this island, put that right there. S on the keyboard scales it up and down. Let me grab this, stick this right here, scale it. And hey, look at that. Oh, look, the label's upside down. Well, we can fix that. Boom. It's a soup can. And then maybe this one right here, say I want to stretch it so I get more of that gradient in. You can use the same similar tools. So you got the transform right here. Wait, what? Or do you? Oh. Or not, I guess. Oh, well, what I could do is select this right here and then control select. Eh. Come on. You're making me select each one of these individually. How annoying. Fine. So I'm shift selecting each one of these individually, even though I don't think I have to. I can grab that. Control key will move those out. So there you go. It's a soup can. Now there's one more thing. We'll go back to layout, switch to preview. So I have the soup can. You'll notice that it doesn't have smooth sides. So what I want to do now is go into edit mode, select the top face. So I select the top face. That means I'm selecting the entire thing right here. I want to mark this edge as sharp. So that's a sharp corner, and the same with the bottom. So I'll mark this as sharp too. And then I'm going to select all the faces around. Actually, I should have done it. I'm backwards now. Okay, there we go. So control, by the way, control key. So when I'm selecting faces in edit mode, control key will select, it will basically take the shortest route to the next selected face. If I hold the shift key, it just selects individual faces. So control is handy for quickly grabbing faces. So I'm going all the way around like that. So I'm going to say edge, mark, clear sharp, face, shade smooth. Oh yeah, that's right. So face, shade smooth, edge, clear sharp. Now I'm going to go back here and edge, mark sharp, and then edge, mark sharp. So now the soup can, if I hide all this stuff, now looks kind of smooth like a soup can. Although I don't know why I'm seeing the well, I think my normals are messed up. So yeah, there's it's a soup can. I made a soup can. Isn't that special?
I love it.
Yeah. Now, one other thing that can come up. Let me start a new file here. Don't save. Is editing existing files. And this happens a lot. Import obj. So let's go find projects. Let's see. Where is it? Well, okay, we'll start with model project. Okay, this is what I'm actually. Or is it? Oh, well, okay. So we'll do the hermit. Natty will recognize this. Oh, came in correct. Okay. I think that's because that's an export thing. Let me see if I can import the hermit. Okay. This is a problem that I often run into when I import objects, because many other software will export OBJs in different ways, and Blender will always import it kind of funny. The biggest thing to consider is that, number one, they always import really huge. So you have to rescale it. Also, you'll notice that the object is sitting the wrong way. So I'm going to undo that. File, import, OBJ. And then over here, you can say, hey, that's not supposed to be that way. So I'm going to say forward is X probably, but you can just basically play around with. And I think there's a way to clamp the size too. I haven't messed with that yet. But we'll just start with changing the import values. Oh, hey, it's facing the direction, but it's not facing the way I want it to. So let's file, import, OBJ. I think I'm gonna try the clamp size to 1. Maybe let's do 2, I think. So we're going to say Y, negative Y forward. Okay. Oh, wow, that's tiny now. Let's see what the, so you can kind of, when you're importing, you can avoid a lot of messing with it by just so we're going to clamp it to size 10 probably. I don't actually know what the value is. There we go. That's pretty dang close. So that's a way to kind of save yourself some grief when you import it, because otherwise you'll be faced with having to resize it, but not rotate. You'll have to resize it. And usually what you want to do is you want it to fit within this little window right here on when you press 0 on the keypad. And so that's about right there. So those are kind of some important things when importing all OBJs from somewhere else, is making sure they're rotated correctly. And then and if I want to, I can take this now that it's imported correctly, I can look at it from above and I can make him face the camera. So I switch the view, I go like that, there's the camera right there. So now he's facing the camera. Not that that's what I want to do, but I actually want him to face this way. So to align it with the y-axis. And you can still do that, for sure. But anyway, okay, so that's importing right there, which is a very important thing, especially if you're downloading stuff from Sketchfab or any of those other model resources to put on Poly.
Medium always import stuff the wrong face.
Yeah. So that saves some grief right there. Another kind of important note. So I've already told you that G is for grab, is for moving, R is for rotating, and what was the other one? S is for scaling. Um, G, you'll notice that it'll move it according to the viewport, but you can force it by pressing Y on the keyboard, so it only moves on one axis. X will do it on the other axis, and then Z will do it on the other axis. So regardless, you just press Z.
Yeah, you don't have to hold it. You just press
Yeah,
it.
you just tap it, and that makes it so you can kind of move stuff without having to guess. And then what? And same with scaling. I think scaling does that too. Yeah, scaling. Oh boy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So scaling does the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Poor guy. So scaling does that too. What else was there? Rotate. I don't think. Okay, rotate. Yeah, you can rotate on and on. You can do the same with rotating. So yeah, that's really handy when you because yeah, once you start, yeah, take a moment and learn some of the keyboard commands because keyboard stuff sometimes is way more powerful. But you can still use these things right here for ease of, you know, of whatever, ease of use. But the keyboard allows for a more efficient workflow. But trying to remember all the keyboard commands can be kind of a pain.
The more you do it, the easier it gets. So
That's true. That's hard.
don't be discouraged.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, is there anything else that so we've done texture paint. Okay, just for the fun of it, my last little thing I'm gonna do, we're gonna just make a simple tunnel object, a box. So
A
file,
box.
new, new, general. So we have our box. So we're gonna go into the shader editor. This is where and this is going to involve some rendering. I mean, you can just slap any old texture on there and it'll probably work. But what I like to do is I like to actually create a texture. Oh shoot, let me delete that box and re-add it. Um, add. Um, I don't know if this box had a UV map made for it, but I'm going to make sure that when I go to add cube, I make sure this generate UVs is selected. Otherwise, okay, look, this is what the UV looks like. This is your typical, six-sided die undone. One thing I might do though, back to, bud, so back to shading. Um, So we're back to shading. I'm going to do this one more time, just in case I have problems with themes. I'm going to mesh, add, cube, generate UVs, size. Oh, never mind. That's not. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So new. So we're creating a new material. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add texture. So I could just slap an image texture on it and call it a day. But what if I want to create my own gradient texture? So I create a gradient texture. I slap that on the cube. We need to be in, so there's the gradient texture, but it doesn't look right. So that's not what I actually want because I want texture, wave texture actually does a better job. So look at that, that's got nice little lines on it now. But here's the problem. It's all black and white and gray. So what I need to do now is I need to make those color. So I add color. Let's see here. Hold on. Where is it? That converter. Here we go. Color ramp. I think it's color. Yeah, here we go. Color ramp. So this is effectively the same as the Photoshop gradient tool right here. So I can add things right here and I can change the colors. So let's change this white to say blue. And let's change this white right here, this gray, to, I don't know, red, or anybody want a specific color? Yeah.
Green.
Yeah, green. Do green.
Green? Green, that's
Green.
okay, we'll do. All right, so we'll do green. And I guess we could leave that at black. So we've got some neat little lines going across that. Now on the wave texture, you can change the scale, so I can make it bigger or smaller. Then I can, if I want to, I can add a little distortion to it, but usually you don't see the distortion when it's in it when it's a tonal object.
Yeah, the edges matter more than anything with the tonal object.
Yeah.
It can actually make things worse with the when you do the distortion.
Yeah, that
You
I
get
can
some
do.
weird choppiness.
Yeah. And then yeah, so scale it. So scale is pretty much the only one that I really want. So okay, that's that. I can. That's probably good enough as it is. It doesn't really need to be that fancy. Um, but you'll notice that some of the sides don't exactly look correct. Maybe if I change this to 0.5. Yeah. And there's a way to change that. You can actually connect a vector and move stuff around, but that's a little bit more complicated than I want to deal with right now. So, okay, I've got that on there, but how do I make it a texture? Well, that's part of the baking process. So what I do is I go to add texture, image texture. I just stick the unused image texture. I create a new file. I turn off the alpha channel because that's going to cause problems if I don't do that. The name doesn't matter, but I'm going to call it blue green. There we go. Good enough. 1024 by 2024. That's probably overkill, but that's okay. Okay, so now I have a texture created right there. I make sure that's selected. Over here, I'll select render. I switch over to cycles. Because cycles is that slower one that I told you about. Feature set supported. Okay. Now we go down to bake. So here's the bake right here. And then before I actually bake it, I go to combined. I select the bake type. I change the combined to diffuse. Now, what each of these three things right here, so you have color, direct, and indirect. Direct and indirect are the lighting on the object itself. So that light that's in the scene, how it's lit right now, will be exactly how, if I leave that and that on, that's exactly how it will be baked. But most of the time when I'm creating a tonal object, I don't want the lighting affecting the object. So I turn these off. So I just want the color that's been created. Okay. So over here, I'm going to select the blue-green texture because that'll be, so let's bake it. There it is. All baked. Now I disconnect this. I disconnect this thing right here. Oh, come on. Then I bring this over right here and I connect it. And there's that same texture that I just created. Now, what I need to do now is I need to save the texture. So over here in the menu, see here, I'll press this button right here. This is the menu. Image, save as, projects, and then blue-green.png. Okay. All right, it's saved. And now, just in case, I'm going to go open the file because I don't want it to I don't want it to mistake what I've done, because I could save that. So it's all there. Okay, let's export OBJ. Pretty much the hard work is done. You have to make sure that the image texture that I've created is now connected to the base color. File, export, OBJ. We're going to call this blue-green. Export OBJ. Done. Now we go back to Internet Explorer, or to a web browser, doesn't matter what one. Select file. Blue-green. There it is. Where did I save it? Did I type it wrong? I must have confused myself. All right, file, for BJ. Oh, it's because I saved it in the wrong folder. Why? Projects. Blue green. There we go. Now let's bring it. There they are. Blue green. TFX. If you ever make a tonal object, always call it always put TFX in there so other people can search for it. Category objects. They need to add a TFX objects category. Visibility public, allow remixing. Good enough. And that's it.
You know, I've never used the category drop-down menu.
Well,
Does it
what
make searching for things easier?
No,
in Wave?
if you go to the categories, I mean, if it's an object that fits a category, then by all means apply the category so people can discover it easier. Because I think Wave does have a categories browse.
I know it used to. I don't know if it still
Yeah.
does.
So there it is, blue green TFX. Woohoo! All pretty. Okay. Is there anything else? Yeah. Sure. Yes. Let me do that. All right. Let's see. I might have started Wave too soon. Oh, there it is. Oh, good. All right. Let me go back to Discord. Change window. Stream change. Is it? Oh, yeah, back. Oh, fine. We'll just maximize this. Sheesh. Got it. Yeah. Well, you can still see it though, can't you? Oh wait. Yeah. Well, I could switch it. Yeah, it's close enough. There we are. Let's see what wave I have loaded this time. Oh, hey, it's the root stage. Sure. All right. Well, I'll just use this one since it's convenient. All right. So I named that poster really bad, so I'm probably not going to find it. Yeah. That's one very important thing when you name an object. You got to make sure you give it some sort of thing that makes it easier to find. Don't go with very generic names. Otherwise, you're not going to find it. Okay, anyway, fine. We'll just go find the material tests. While we're waiting for the tunnel effects. Wow. Not search. That is odd.
Polly.
Come on, Polly. While I'm doing that, let's see if I can switch the change window. It's better. Oh, it's kind of vertical, right? Oh, wow, that is full screen. Okay. What's going on here? Back. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is a Explore Google Poly. Don't tell me Google Poly just decided to crap out.
Looks like it.
I'm looking at
Always
Google
when you
Poly.
need it most.
Oh, I was able to go home, and oh, hold on, something's coming up. There we go. All right, fine, let's go. All right. Well, I don't know if it was Wave or Polly that was doing that. All right. Actually, let's just go find that wave that has it in. I think it's my old grid. The grid. Here we go. Oh, that's, oops. Not want that one. Nope. Ooh, let's not do that. I think I did that accidentally once. Is it this one? Here we go. Yep, this is it. The objects just need to load in. There they are. All right. Let's turn the point light down. All right. So this first one right here is what I call black or black. And what it demonstrates
is this demonstrates the roughness. So this is, I think, 0 roughness, and it goes in 200 increments. And this is 2 roughness. Oh, well, 0.2. So this is 0, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and then that's full roughness right there. So you notice it's got a perfect reflection. That radial machine is annoying.
These are all roughness set in Blender, yeah?
Yeah. So this would be if you set 0 roughness, that's what it would look like. And this is 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. No, 0.0, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and then 0.9. Or a 1 actually is that right there. So that's basically a perfect reflection of the scene. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that you'll notice it's static. Like if I look up, you see those rainbows right there going and that rotating right there. That's all static because it's basically a snapshot of what's going on around your head. Now, these 3 back here, this is roughness with metallic applied. And metallic, you'll notice that it kind of the metallic has an odd effect. First of all, it does not reflect any light. It does not create light. If you're in an empty scene and you have 2-point lights, it does not show those on the actual surface. So the metallic will almost always look darker than anything else in the scene. This is most evident in a Rue's festival stage, which we started out in. So this right here is a demonstration. See, in the MTL format, you have the various what are they called? I can't remember, but this basically demonstrates what the 3 metallic styles are. They're essentially the same, but there's the illum value. So in the MTL, you have an illum value, ILUM, and that's illum 1, illum 2, illum 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And illum 1 is supposed to be, I think, emit where it's supposed to emit, but it doesn't do that. Illum 2 is normal diffuse. Illum 3 is a type of metallic, and just it goes on up. But as you can tell, that despite having the different illum values, these don't really, aside from the metallics, they don't really look that different. Okay, this is the texture test. That I just applied a texture. So this is the texture which I've applied. It's the same texture all around. So every single one of these has the same texture. But you notice on the 1, 2, and 3 right here, this one's darker than this one, even though it's literally the same texture. That's because that has a diffuse value of 60%, this is, I think, 40, and I think this is 60, or a diffuse value of 0.4, I think, and then 0.6, and then this is 100%. This is 1 on the roughness scale. This, I think, is specular value, but I already know that specular doesn't work. And then this is texture with metallic with that's metallic with a texture, and it looks kind of cool. But the one challenge is that it relies on this bright scene right here to properly light up. The minute I get rid of the white scene and all this background stuff, is the minute this turns rather dark. All right, what do we got next? Oh yes, transparency. This is the transparency test. The one problem with transparency, as you'll notice that there's that speckling on the inside. That's because it's showing the inside faces. Notice it clears up once I go inside of it. And I think that could be solved by having an option to remove the back faces, but we don't have that option, so no matter what, it works.
Removing back faces does work in FBX, but
Oh,
then you're
okay.
playing with FBXs.
Yeah, true. Well, okay. Actually, what we need to do is, add that to the request list. Ability to in-game remove and disable back faces, because there are times I can imagine we'd use that.
Hmm.
I actually, what one's this? Oops. When is this? Specular. Okay, specular. That doesn't do anything. This right here are just a test of various things. It's effectively a combined test. So you have a transparency test, actually 2 transparency tests, and then there's some other stuff. There's the metallic test. That was the original one I created. I think that's it for the tests. Let's see if that TFX has showed up now. Go to a different scene. All right. So, oh hey, this thing. It's obviously out of sync. Let's see. Shows up. There it is. Okay. There's the TFX. So let's try that out. Modifier. Select it first. See how that looks. Tunnel. There it is. Not too shabby. And something like this, I'd probably turn radius scale animation off. Oh yeah. Asset scale up. Rotation if I want it to be squiggly. No rotation if I don't want it to be squiggly. Or anything in between. Rotation. I almost always turn radius animation up. And of course, scroll speed. So that simple, stupid object I just made does that.
It looks awesome, man.
Looks really great.
And just like with whenever you build the thing, you always want scroll speed and tunnel speed to be the first items. Rotation. And then basically everything else. Okay, I'm gonna turn that off. One tool I created, see this axis test right here that I created this a while ago. This is a way so when you're in Blender and you want to like build an object that's specific to the rotation of the of the thing. This right here represents the various axes in Blender. So you have red with a black tip. Black means negative. So this is negative red, whatever red is in Blender. Positive red in Blender. Green and blue. So I turn that into a tunnel. Actually, that's kind of cool on its own, but you know. But that allows me to scale animation off, tunnel spin off, no rotation. So if I wanted to create an object that falls on the red and blue axis, and that allows me to just say, okay, if I want that object, I'll create on there, and then the rotation right there will at least follow that to a degree, although the rotation is kind of funny in its own right. But as a base, at least, that gives you an idea of when you're building something in Blender, what the positioning should be. It's even a decent tunnel object on its own.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of another tool in my arsenal of stuff. Anyway, anything else? Any questions?
I went into Wave for the first time with Quest the other night, and I found it so hard just moving stuff around. I was trying to. Maybe it was because the thing I was trying to move was on a massive scale, but I don't know if I was.
Yeah,
maybe
that
doing
can be a factor.
Okay.
I know that were you doing it through the virtual link, or were you doing it like virtual?
It was it's a bit. I've got a bit of a crap Wi-Fi at home, so that's probably the main issue is my Wi-Fi.
Oh, so you weren't using a cable, because I know that there is latency issues with Oculus with Quest if you're let me think, if you're trying to do stuff.
Also, are you talking about like just lag and trying to move the object, or actually trying to select it and move it?
I think it was more. I mean, it was lagging, but it was actually just how I couldn't work it out. Like how.
Do you have an object? Do you have that object in mind? I could look it up.
Yeah, it's called Bioptics Tunnel.
Okay.
With an X, Bioptics with an X.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay.
You probably just look Bioptics. There's not much there, so you'll probably find it already.
I'll go to do that.
Yeah, the first one there.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's supposed to be
Yes,
like
scale does become a problem.
Okay.
Scale and also the normals, because the lasers will only latch on to the normals if they're facing you. If they're facing away, then it won't grab it.
Yeah, tilt brush objects are really hard to grab sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was all done in tilt brush, so I don't know if that has enough. If the normals are an issue with tilt brush as well, or
yeah,
they can be. Also, things are a lot wonkier if you grab them from like the inside of the object. So like like where you're standing in here, it's going to be a lot
Well,
harder.
it depends on the brush too. Like I think
Mm.
hull brush by itself is pretty easy to grab, but a lot of the flat brushes are hard to grab.
It was mostly unlit hull. The
Yeah. This doesn't seem like if I go to here, so anytime you see that highlight right there, that means you can grab it.
Mm.
But,
Oh, and also the other thing to look out for if you're having trouble moving something around, turn magnet off. For some reason,
yeah.
if magnet is on, sometimes it
Yeah,
gets really.
magnet does do that.
okay, yeah, I couldn't work
Yeah.
out what magnet actually was doing.
Okay. Yeah. Let me go over magnet really quick. So I'll just make this a little bit smaller so you can kind of see what's going on because it's really hard to manage stuff when you have in magnet because really. So if I turn magnet on, what it does is it will align the object in by default 3-degree increments. So you'll
Ah,
notice
yeah,
that
okay.
it's snapping it
Yeah,
at an increment, and it also does it in rotation too, and it also
okay.
snaps it up and down to a grid right there. So
So
it's
it's
kind
pretty
of like
heavy.
it's you know. The
Yeah, I
only
forgot
problem is that when it does snap, you're seeing it kind of you see the highlight of it, which kind of throws you off a little bit. I almost wish the highlight wasn't there. But
Yeah, the highlight's what you're actually holding, and then the solid one is where it's going to be when you let go.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Magnet would work for this object because you intend this to be a scroller, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So you're
Okay.
going through the tunnel, kind of,
Yeah. All
but
right,
it has to be
let me
huge.
turn this scroller off first of all, because that's getting in my way. That's not what I wanted. What the up there? Where's scroller? Where'd my panels go? Okay, tunnel off. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna zoom this out really big. So you kind of want the magnet for this. Now, the bigger you
Yeah.
are, the little bit easier it is to manage the object. It's less, it throws you off. There's that right there. I'll just kind of size that so we're inside the, we're kind of like a UFO floating through the tunnel, I
Okay. Yeah.
guess. There we go.
Well, that helps to have the scale already because I was completely
Yeah,
had no idea what scale I was at or.
yeah. So yeah, you can zoom in and out by holding the shoulder buttons on the controller. So the bigger the bigger you are, the more easier it is to manage really big stuff. Okay, so we're gonna move this. Yeah, and like Tatsu was saying, is that it's really hard to grab and shift it around. I don't even know if this is scrolling the right way. I might be on the wrong side of the.
Yeah, that's me. I always had that issue as well.
Yeah, because right now you can only scroll in one direction. So the only option, if it's scrolling the wrong way, would be to go into tilt brush and physically rotate the thing 180 degrees and then re-upload it because I don't think there's any other way to get around that. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Dark. Yes. Oh.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because I was looking at your train tutorial room.
There we
And,
go.
that was
Okay.
what I was trying to get towards, but I don't know. I just couldn't handle this.
Okay. So apparently it's on the wrong side, so I'm gonna move this so it's on the other side. Interesting that the tunnel. It's kind of useful having that big white thing to, because all the other stages are so dark. All right. Now this is going to be the really hard part, is getting the length right. See how that looks. Looks like we're close enough. Now let me. Oh. All right. So now this works. Since it's on its own, this works off of the z-axis apparently.
Hmm.
There's the speed right there. Now the challenge is going to be getting the z distance, so you're making the proper distance. So just kind of keep on tweaking that until you get to where you want it to end. That actually seems about right. At
Okay.
least close enough, I guess. I kind of like the idea of having having it really foggy where it ends off, just so you can kind of mask the transition to the start
Yeah.
of the new one. But that's actually kind of smart. But getting there is going to be the hard part.
Yeah. I mean,
Slowly
it
do it.
was. I'm still kind of working, so
Yeah.
I wanted to just try it and see if it was even would even work. But good to see it does work.
Yeah.
Just have to make it so it loops better.
Yeah. The
Like yeah,
looping anything in tilt brush is really hard. You're kind of forced. You'll see this in like Wonderful Blunders show. You're kind of forced to mask the end where you have that, like you have that fog right there. You want to start in the fog and end in the fog, so you can
yeah,
kind of mask the transition, because otherwise you have to like have an exact copy replica of the object stacked over, and then trying to figure out, and that is really hard, especially with a complex object like this where you can't see where the edges are. That would be
yeah.
really hard.
Okay, good to know.
So your best bet is to just mask it. Let's see here. That's that sudden transition that's kind of hard to deal with. And anything that can kind of mask it, like just a giant fog wall that you end on,
Yeah,
and then there's one that you start on, would go a long ways to. It does look really good.
I would like to see it in VR working. Yeah, cool.
Giving off a real Ridley Scott kind of vibe.
Yeah, it does sort of. See if I can raise this. Yeah, especially at that distance.
My
I kind of
screen.
had no choice.
My,
Yep.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we might be hitting the. I don't know. Was there a line on the floor that you were following? Because it does seem like it's kind of skewing off in a direction.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was all the kind of tunnel was built along a grid.
Oh, okay. And
Cube,
it looks
so-
like you used the mirror tool, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the real question is, was that mirror tool snapped to the exact direction, or is it?
Good question.
That's kind of the real question, because it feels like I start off straight, but it just kind of seems like we end off to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
going
my
left.
imagination, but
Or
that's
maybe
a-
like Rue said, maybe didn't have the axis proper.
you could compensate by, I think, moving the X, I think, ever so slightly, because that'll cause it to kind of go to skew the other direction a little bit, so it ends more straight. But that can be a little helpful too, I think. Yeah. I mean, you can compensate. It's just
Really twitchy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's a work in progress. So
Yeah. Well, if that's
try
a
and,
work in progress, then that's like. Oh, yeah, look,
that's all.
I almost got it centered. I just need to back this off a little bit. So yeah, you can kind of compensate for being a little off-centered, but that makes it just that much harder to align it.
Yeah.
So I think still back off just a touch. I think I hit it.
Yeah, straight down. Cool.
And I guess another option would be make it so you start in the black and then you go through. But yeah, that's that whole fog wall idea where you just kind of want to
Yeah.
mask it. Have a fog wall basically at the beginning and then have a fog wall at the end.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Just make it so the fog wall ends like right in the center of the stage, or maybe right in front of it or something. So you start the fog wall right there, and then you have the end fog wall end in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll give that a go then. Thank you for showing me how it's done.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else?
I think we good, buddy.
Woohoo!
Nice.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
good.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oof.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very